Frank, I'll be talking about student loans primarily is what we're gonna be touching on over the next like 30 minutes, especially with all the crazy news. But we're also be talking on touching on financial planning as well. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. Who is this for? Basically, most of you, I'm assuming, watching this are going to be beginners. If you guys take away about 10 to 15% of what I'm talking about tonight, fantastic. That is a great start. Those of you that are experienced as well, probably guessing about 10% of you maybe have a little bit more experience. You're going to pick up some good nuggets on this today. A little bit about me. Again, my name is Joseph Ranke. I'm a CFA charter holder. Basically what that is it's kind of like a postdoctorate in the finance world for investing and whatnot. It's a series of 3 exams. They're 6 hours apiece. You have to take them concurrently. If you don't pass one, you have to wait another year to take it. So they are a pain in the butt. Basically, as you guys are getting ready to take the NPTE, some of you might have already taken it. Some of you might not have taken it yet. I get the stress you're going through, right? Those tests are a pain in the butt. So, and if you already did take it and passed it, congratulations. My background started off with investing when I was about 12 years old. I've been in wealth management. I've been in mortgages. I've been in investment banking, valuation work, working with like billion-dollar companies and stuff. So that was fun. Been in student loans as well, which never thought I'd be in student loans, but since over the last 10, 15 years, it's grown into what it has grown into. It's kind of crazy to see it. In short, my student loan stuff has come from founding FitBux. As I mentioned, I'm the founder of FitBux. We've helped manage about $2.7 billion in assets and debts for new grads. Over $2 billion of that is in student loans. So any questions you guys have while we're going through this, definitely let me know. We help everybody now, but we primarily started with PTs. That's what our initial focus was on. A lot of people ask me why. It's because my wife was a PT, or actually is a PT. And so we started the company there, and then we've expanded everywhere else. All right. So again, if you guys have anything specific questions related to PTs and financing and PT stuff, just let us know as well. You guys can put the questions in the chat box, and then we can go from there. Before we dive into student loans, I do want to dive a little bit more into my background. It's going to help you understand the whole theme of tonight of making money complement your life and not dictate it. When I graduated from college, I didn't have a student loan problem. I had an income problem. Okay, I was making about $26,000 a year, and that was living in Los Angeles. Okay, so a little bit higher cost of living and not making any money. I did nothing for an entire year. Okay, that year that I graduated, I was working for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And after about a year, I decided, you know what? I don't want to be in sports anymore. So I'm gonna put together this grand plan. I'm gonna quit sports. I'm gonna go work on Wall Street. I'm gonna make a ton of money, and I'm gonna be financially free after that. Okay. Quitting sports was easy. Once I made this decision, within 2 weeks, I was back up in Northern California, living with my old roommates, aka my parents. And then working on Wall Street was a little bit more difficult, but I made an agreement with a company to start in their wealth management division, and then switch over once I got my CFA into their investment analytics department. So that's how I started in wealth management. And little did I know that that's when true financial freedom, this definition of true financial freedom, would really begin, like my journey of learning what that was. And what I mean by that is, like, my first week that I was working, I had someone come in and said, "Hey, I want to move financial planners." I said, "What's wrong with the guy that you have?" And they said, "Well, I've been paying this guy for 15 years and I'm not hitting any of my goals. And I'm like 50 years old now and I'm not anywhere close." And I had those conversations for almost a year straight, almost every day, with people between the ages of 45 and 55, and realizing they would never hit their goals. And so I started researching why. Like, how could somebody be working with a quote unquote financial professional and not be hitting their goals? And I knew it wasn't because, oh, well, they weren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, because I saw the plans these financial planners made for them. And these people were following it to the T. And then they just woke up and realized they were nowhere close. The plans were flawed. And so I started doing a bunch of research, algorithm, behavioral analytics, all that type of stuff. And that's what led to the creation of FitBux. And a lot of the stuff that research that I did, I'm going to go through with you guys today, especially when we talk about the financial planning stuff. And I want to go through that background because when we get there, I want you guys to remember that those 45 to 55-year-olds not hitting their goals. All right. So with that being said, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to go through a bunch of student loan repayment options, and then we're going to go through how to build a plan. And then if you guys have any questions, we will dive right into them. Okay. First and foremost, there are a lot of different student loan repayment plans. They are mind-numbing to go through. Okay. So like if you go for your federal loans, if you go to the Department of Education and you pull up all the different loan repayment plans and try to read through them and figure out which ones to use, you're going to get lost. Okay. So from a financial planning standpoint, what we do to make this easy for you is we break it into 2 strategies. That's all you got to figure out. Which strategy am I going to do? Pay off my loans or go on loan forgiveness? Okay. Those are the 2 keys. All right. So I'm going to switch the screens. I'm going to start with payoff strategies first. Okay. And the key to payoff strategy. So let me zoom in on my screen a little bit. All right. So in this example, this person has 8 different loans, about $153,000 in loans at 6.7%. First thing I want you guys to know about student loans is this term called your required payments. Okay. What the required payment is this number right here, $1,755 a month. Okay, so this individual, that required payment, they have to pay it every single month. Okay, they have no say on when they do it, how much they do, but when it comes to student loans, they have no say on where that money goes. So they're going to pay this $1,755, and it gets dispersed across all of these loans on a predetermined basis. Okay, so that's required payment. Basically, you have no control of it. Okay, now the other term I want you guys to know for payoff strategies is prepayments. Okay, now a prepayment is an amount you pay in addition to the required payment. So it doesn't replace your required payment, it's in addition to the required payment. Okay, now the thing about the prepayment is I can target specific loans. So I have this 7.9% loan up here. If I want to pay that one off first, I can do that with my prepayment. So just to give you an example of what happens when you make a prepayment, let's just say I want to prepay $200. So $1,755 is a required payment. $200 is a prepayment. You can see what ends up happening is I save about $11,000 and I shave about 2.5 years off my loans. That's the whole purpose of a prepayment. Pay off debt and get out of it early and save money. You can do this with car loans. We're seeing a lot of people, new grads, do this with car loans right now. Car loans are upwards of like 9, 10, 11%. They're making prepayments in the car loans. They're making prepayments on credit card debt. Some people are making prepayments on their mortgages. But with student loans, it's different because you have multiple loans. Like you don't have multiple car loans on the same car. You don't have multiple mortgages on the same mortgage. Student loans, you have multiple loans. So with the prepayment, you can target that specific loan. All right. So that is key number 1. All right. Required payment versus prepayment. Now, what I want you to think about though is if I want to pay off my loans aggressively, is there a way I can reduce my required payments so that way it frees up more money to make prepayments? And the answer is yes. I'm going to show you guys this one way right now. Like if I extend these loans out, my required payment drops to $1,055 a month. Okay. So let's just say I'm still going to make the higher payment, but I want to do this smartly. So I drop my required payment because I can't control that, but I still make a $700 prepayment. Now, even though I'm paying exactly the same every month, the $1,755 that I was before, now 700 of it I'm able to allocate to the high interest rate loan. So when I do that, I end up saving $6,000 and shave a year off my loan just by moving around the required monthly payment and using that flexibility to my advantage. Now, earlier I brought up this is all about complementing your life, okay? Because I don't want you guys to memorize like that technique that I told you right now and the math behind it, because like we can help you walk through all that. But what I wanted to point out to you is that this drops the required payment. And by doing that, I get my financial plan flexibility. And so you might say, hey, in my career, I wanted to go do a residency or a fellowship, but it's going to require me to reduce my income. Well, that's fine. If you do that, you can drop your required payment, go do that residency or that fellowship, and then after you're done and your income goes up, then start making prepayments. Maybe you have another goal that you want to get to first. Maybe you want to save for a car. And so you want to do that first, or you want to pay off your car because it's got like an 11% interest rate. Great. You could drop your required payment on your student loans and use that extra money to pay off your credit or your car loans or your credit cards or whatever it is first. The other way this helps is, for example, when you want to go buy a house, if some of you want to have a house, they would look at the required payment on your student loans to qualify you for a mortgage. Okay, so the lower this required payment, the easier it is to qualify for a house. All right. Now, the last term that I want to go through with you guys when it comes to payoff strategies is refinancing. And refinancing is where you take all these loans or whatever loans are like higher interest rates, and you go to a private lender and you say, hey, now that I graduated, will you give me a lower interest rate? And if they say yes, they replace one loan with a new loan. So that's what refinancing is, replacing one loan with another loan. The whole purpose most of the time is to save money. Okay. Now, you don't have to refinance all your loans. Like if you just want to refinance these higher interest rate loans, these top 3 that I have that are over 7%, you can do that. There's a little bit more legwork that you got to do that, but you can. The key on refinancing is a couple things. One, you got to shop rates. Okay. That's number one. Number 2 is that you go from a federal loan to a private loan. So you got to figure out, is it worth giving up some of the federal benefits that you have? Some of the federal benefits, as you'll see, are like loan forgiveness. They're a little bit more flexible on disability type of stuff as well. So you really have to say, hey, how much am I saving? Is it $1,000, $5,000, $10,000? Is it enough for me to give up my federal benefits? Sometimes it's not, sometimes it is. And I just give you guys an example. Only about 20% of people that go through FitBux and have us help them with their financial plans and student loans actually refinance. Okay, about 15 to 20%. Okay, and that's for federal loans. Now, private loans, if you have private loans, that's a different story. You are most likely going to want to refinance those. Actually, you are going to do everything you can to refinance those. Okay, and so that's what I wanted to talk about on payoff loans or payoff strategies is required payment versus prepayment and refinancing. The last part that I'll say about that, because we're going to jump into student loans forgiveness right now. Student loan refinancing does not apply to loan forgiveness plans. If you're going loan forgiveness, do not refinance. That's one of the biggest mistakes we see with new grads. All right. So with that said, I'm going to switch my screen real quick. All right. So before I actually show you guys this example of loan forgiveness, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. Okay. There are many types of loan forgiveness. You might have seen them called like pay as you earn, income during repayment plans, income payment plans, PSLF, PAYE, all these acronyms, IBR, all this stuff. Okay. So that term, loan forgiveness, is what the government uses to classify all those different types of programs. And if you try to go into the nuts and bolts of every single one of them, you're going to get really confused. I mean, it's so confusing. Even the loan servicers don't know how to navigate them because they're so confusing. Okay. But what I want you to understand them from a 30-foot view. Okay. So the way these work is that your required payment is based as a percentage of your income. Okay. So let's just say $80,000 a year. Your payment might be like $400 a month. Now, in my case, the interest that I'm charged every month on my loans is about $850 a month. And so if my payments are only $400, but my interest is $850, that difference in interest I'm not paying. Okay, so therefore my loan balance doesn't go down. In fact, for most of you, the loan balance is actually going to go up. And it happened for 20 years. Okay, so for 20 years that happens, and then after 20 years, whatever you owe is then forgiven. All right. So when they get forgiven, though, let's say I owe 200 grand in student loans at that point. I don't have to pay that But in that tax year, now, I have to claim that as income and pay taxes on it. Okay, so that means that on these, I am trying to save as much as I can for that tax. And if you compare payoff strategies versus loan forgiveness, payoff strategies, you're trying to pay them off as fast as you can and make as big as prepayments as possible. Loan forgiveness is the opposite. You're trying to pay as little as you can and save as much as you can for that tax, or save for another type of goal, down for a house, whatever it might be. Okay, so we're going to go into those details on how to save for that tax. One thing I do want to touch on is public service loan forgiveness, PSLF. Okay, public service loan forgiveness is a special feature of these plans. What it says is that if you're on one of these income driven repayment plans, but you work full time for a nonprofit and you make 120 on time payments, then your loans are forgiven after that 120 payments. Okay, so that's 10 years. Okay, so you think of this as normal loan forgiveness versus public service loan forgiveness. Normal loan forgiveness is 20 years with a tax at the end of it. Public service loan forgiveness is 10 years, no tax. It does not have to be consecutive 10 years. It does not have to be even for the same nonprofit. You can go from one nonprofit to another. You can have gap time in between there. That's fine. It's just 120 payments while you're working full time at a nonprofit. All right. So let me go back to sharing my screen and I'll show you guys how to start saving for this tax. As you guys can see here, this person is making about $78,000 a year. So I'm going to look at pay as earned because as of right now, that's the program that's out there right now. Estimated monthly payment would be $468 a month. See that in 20 years, we're estimating that you have about $203,000 to $204,000 forgiven. Means the tax would be about $71,000 a year. Now, you'll see this again when we talk about financial planning, but when you're saving for that, what you'd want to do is save what we have termed the required minimum savings amount. Okay. In my example, I would have to save about $200 a month and earn 5% interest on that. And if I did that for 20 years, it would be worth $71,000. Okay. So that's how you start setting up a plan, is saying, here's my monthly payment going to government now. I'm going to put away somewhere and let that grow. So in years when the IRS knocks, here's a check, get lost, I'm done with you guys. Okay. Now, how do you actually save that money? Okay. And where do you save it and that type of stuff? First of all, we recommend opening up an account somewhere that is basically different than like your savings account. Most people we work with are going to open this up and save in their Roth IRA. There's a number of different reasons. If you guys have questions on that, we can answer that later. Because of time, I don't want to dive too deep into the Roth IRA right now. But that's where we typically save it at, is in the Roth IRA. You can also use like a taxable investment account or like a high yield savings account online. Just save it. The other key thing on this is that tax is going to change over time. Getting married is a big reason why it changes. Okay. So just be aware that tax is going to change. Something that you just set and forget for the next 20 years. You got to stay on top of it and keep following up with it. Okay. The other thing is that monthly payment, in my example, is $468 a month. Loan servicers miscalculate that all the time. All the time. So you got to make sure that they are actually calculating the right monthly payment. I see that when they make the mistake, it ranges anywhere between like $200 a month. I've seen some as large as $1,800 a month mistakes. So make sure that they're calculating it correctly. Okay. So that is what I wanted to talk about in regards to student loans. Let me switch over back into the PowerPoint. Give me just a second. All right, we're going to spend about 10, 15 minutes talking about financial planning. And if you guys have any questions, we can go through that as well. First and foremost, there's a couple aspects of financial planning that I'm going to go through with you guys. And as I mentioned earlier, this is all based on research, behavioral stuff, and mixing and matching different things with clients over the years for the last, 15 years. And now FitBux, like we've helped over 20,000 people, taking that information, saying, how can we make this as simple as possible for you guys? So that way you understand what you need to about money, and it will get you where you need to go to without all this stress and anxiety about it. Okay. First and foremost, start off with, how do you organize your money? I'm going to give you guys an example. My buddy Ben, and he wanted to graduate from college, work in professional sports and whatnot. And he worked his way through undergrad. Basically had no debt or anything like that when he graduated from undergrad. But in order to work in sports, a specific job that he wanted to do, he had to go get a graduate degree. So like similar to you guys, in order to be a PT, you have to get a doctorate. He had to get a graduate degree. Okay. So he ended up doing that, graduated 18 months later with his graduate degree, worked in professional sports, making like 90, 95 grand a year. And I thought everything was going good. He had been dating this girl for 3 or 4 years, and my buddies used to make fun of him about not getting married. Like, what was he waiting for? And one night I made a comment to him. I said, like, it's obvious that you don't like this girl. And he's like, well, why do you say that? I said, because you're not getting married. So why are you wasting your time? And he was like, no, that's not at all. I can't afford a ring. Basically, money was dictating his life. Okay. And I didn't know it. So what I didn't know at that time was that he had about $100,000 in student loan debt and about $15,000 in credit card debt, and he was living paycheck. And so I asked him, I said, what'd you do? And he's like, well, I started it off with a budget. And I said, okay. So how'd you do that? He's like, well, I started in Excel and it's just a bunch of numbers. And I said, okay, well, what'd you do next? He's like, I downloaded a budgeting app. And I said, how's that going? He's like, I stopped using it. I'm like, why? I'm like, and he's like, I don't understand. I don't know what I'm doing. And I had to pull out the budgeting app, and it's just a bunch of numbers. I said, where do these numbers come from? He's like, I just plugged them in there. Like, where do these goals come from? I just put numbers in there. I don't know if it's right or wrong. And that's the problem with the budget. Okay. A budget is not a financial plan. It's used to organize your money, so that way you can then build a financial plan and implement it with a purpose. You see, a budgeting app and budgeting in general just shows you where your numbers historically have been. A financial plan gives you guidance on what you should be doing with your money. And so one of the biggest mistakes people make when it comes to finances is they get their budget and they think they're doing a financial plan, and they're not. And then they end up quitting completely because they're not achieving anything. Okay. So how do you organize your money correctly, if that's the purpose of it? To simplify your financial plan, we break the money into 3 categories: day-to-day money, money for future self, and risk management. Okay, those are the big 3. So when you do a budget, this is what you should be looking at a high level. Okay, how is my money allocated in day-to-day money? How is my money allocated in money for future self and risk management? As you can see here, day-to-day money is income and day-to-day expenses, so like food and rent. Money for future self is asset contributions or short-term investments or retirement and debt. And then risk management is premium payments. So like health insurance, disability insurance, that type of stuff. Okay. And so when I show my buddy Ben this, I'm going to show, I went through what I'm going to show you next. I went through with him, and he did all this, and he ended up paying off his credit cards in 3 months, bought a ring 2 months after that, paid off his student loans in 2.5 years. Now he's got 2 kids, no debt, $600,000 in assets, and he's on pace to have $2 million by the time he's 55 years old. None of that would have happened had he not organized his money correctly. So step number 1 is you got to organize your money correctly. And the easiest way to do it is in those 3 categories, because if you do it that way, then it makes it easy to actually build a plan and implement it, which I'm going to show you guys next. Okay. For example, I'll give you guys, his name is Connor, to illustrate this point. He wanted to get married post-graduation, buy a house, have 3 kids, and exit the rat race. He had about $105,000 in student loan debt, didn't know anything about mortgages. He went to an advisor. I tip my hat to his advisor because most of them won't say this to you, but he had no clue about student loans. And so they called the loan servicer up, and the loan servicer was like, we recommend you go on repay. Loan servicers can't recommend anything. By law, they have to tell you something. Okay. Repay was the absolute worst choice that Connor could have gone on. And that's what his advisor did, because he didn't know any better. And then his advisor told him that he could qualify for a $650,000 house. What you can qualify for is not what you can afford. Okay. Big difference. So that's the financial plan that this financial planner built for Connor. And I'm going to show you guys what would have happened to him over time. Before I show you this chart, I want to explain something to you. When I was, going back and trying to test all these theories, I would run like algorithms and it would just spit out a whole bunch of numbers. And it's like, how do I compare all these things? Right. So what I did to compare plans long term to make sure they weren't going to fail is I put all that data into one data point called the FitBux score. So then when I could build a financial plan, I could see over time, hey, if I build this for somebody that's 30, that by the time they're 45 or 50, like those people I told you about earlier, they're going to be on their way to retirement instead of figuring out, oh crap, it's going to tank. Okay. So when I was modeling all this stuff out, that was the easiest thing for me was the FitBux score. So that way I could see what happens long-term to a plan. And so in Connor's case, this was his FitBux score that financial planner built. As you can see, the dark blue line, that's his plan. It absolutely tanks. And that is because he overbought on a house. And then it starts to go up, and right around 45, 50 years old is when it plateaus and then tanks. So had Connor done that, his financial plan at 45 or 50 years old would have been catastrophic, okay? Now, you might have asked earlier when I was saying to yourself, hey, like those people that I told you about that I would be working with that had advisors and planners for 15 years just to realize, oh crap. It's like, how do they do that? How do you not know? Well, Connor's case is a perfect example of that. So I want to highlight this. You see, at this point, this low, Connor had a $650,000 mortgage, about $100,000 student loan debt. And he had his first child at that same point in time. So a lot of expenses, okay? And he also had very minimal, if any, retirement. So his financial planner said, okay, well, start paying off your debt, start paying off your student loans, and then start saving in retirement. So if you fast forward like 5 years down the road, his 650 grand, he's feeling good because he's been making payments on time. So it might be down to like 630 grand. His 100 grand down to 90 or 80 or 70 grand, so it feels good there. Went from 0 in retirement to like 30 grand in retirement, so it feels good there. So his score is going up because he's in a better situation than the really bad situation that he was in. And so people they keep following that plan because that's what they were told to do. I'm following the plan and I feel like I'm getting better. But what ends up happening is all of a sudden he gets out here and that mortgage, he still owes like 200 and 250 grand. In his 401k, he's only got 300 grand or 400 grand, and he's looking at trying to retire in 10 or 15 years. And it's like, oh shit, like I'm not going to have enough money because he didn't do something right. Okay. So what did he not do right? The number one key I want you guys to remember about financial planning is that you have to focus. Focus. The more you focus, the less stress you'll have in your life. And you can actually go focus on why you guys went to school, which is become PTs, instead of trying to stress about money. So what do you focus on? There's two things, a long-term goal and a short-term goal, okay? The long-term goal is money for future self, okay? Remember those three categories I told you guys earlier. Those three categories are key to organizing your money to make planning and implementing your plan easy. That money for future self, your only long-term goal is to increase it over time. I'm going to show you guys why this is so impactful, okay? Let's just say you started investing $100 per month and you left it there for life and you earned 8%. By life, I mean 40 years. That would be $349,000 40 years from now, okay? Now, same scenario, all you do is increase it by $25 per month. So this year, you do $100 per month. Next year, you do $125 per month. The year after that, you do $150 per month. That money goes to $1.2 million in the same time period. Okay, that's what happens when you increase money for future self. Now, if you recall, debt is also a part of that category. So what happens when you do the same thing with debt? Maybe you're trying to pay off your student loans fast. Maybe you're trying to pay off your car loans fast. Maybe you're trying to pay off your mortgage fast. Let's just say you had a $300,000 mortgage and you're paying it off for 30 years. Most people don't make prepayments because they don't even know what they are. Okay. In that case, you'd pay $718,000 over 30 years. But let's just say, yeah, you know about prepayments. So you start prepaying $100 per month. And then every year you increase it by $100 per month. So next year you make a $200 prepayment. The following year, $300 per month prepayments. and you keep going as your income goes up, you keep increasing your prepayments. You end up only paying $527,000 and the loan's gone to 16 years. You basically save $200,000 off that, and you're out of debt in almost half the time. Okay. So that's why it's so important. That second category, that is the key to financial planning and securing your financial future and hitting your goals, increasing how much money you're doing to that second category, money for future self. The second goal you have is short term, and you want to focus on one short-term goal at a time. You don't want to go through and have like 5 or 6 different things you're trying to do at the same time, because reality says you're not going to end up accomplishing any of them, because money takes time. And the more things you're trying to do short-term, the longer it's going to take you to do something. And the longer it takes you to do something, probability says you're going to stop doing it. Okay, so one goal at a time. So how do you go through setting this financial plan up? First step, you go to day-to-day money, put in your income and your expenses. Second step is you go and you put your minimums in towards money for future self. What I mean by that, you're going to go in and put in your 401k matching. You're going to go in and put in a minimum towards a Roth IRA, and then you put in minimum payments towards your debts. Then you go into risk management and you put in your premium payments. And then you say, after all that, you step back, you say, how much money is left over? And everything you have left over goes to that number one short-term goal. So when I showed you guys Connor's, this is what he did for money for future self. He has a minimum going to get his 401k match, which was 4%. He has a minimum of $50 a month going towards his Roth IRA. And then for him, the rest of his money was $1,500 a month going towards his student loans. Okay, so that's how he set up his goal, because we switched his number one short-term goal was to pay off his loans in 3 years, and then save for the house and buy the house after that. So we had switched his plan up. Okay. And you can see here from a long-term perspective, he has 300 plus 1,563. So $1,863 a month going towards money for future self. His goal is to increase that at least once a year. You actually want to increase this as often as possible. The faster you increase this, the more wealth you're going to generate, and the faster you're going to hit your short-term goals. Okay, so that is the key there. Now, what happened with Connor? You can see that his score goes down. It's going to go down because he bought a house, but it doesn't tank to zero like it did before, because we changed how much home he can afford. But more importantly, you can see his score goes up and it stays up. Okay, now in the long term, he ended up paying off his loans in 2.5 years, bought the house 3 years. In 3 years, him and his wife had their first child recently. They're on pace to have $3.4 million by the time they hit retirement. Okay. And by the way, that's with her staying at home with the kids. Okay. So this can be done, and it will greatly simplify your life. And that is the key thing. One, start thinking about your student loans and understanding what to do with those. And then understanding the key things that we talked about with financial planning. Okay. Organizing your money into those 3 categories. And then when it comes to your goals, you have a long-term goal of increasing money for future self, and you have a short-term goal of whatever your number one priority is. All your available money is going to that. Okay. And like I said, we can answer some questions for you guys if you'd like to. However, before we stop, we have a special package that's only for people that are part of New Grad or PTA+FF. So this is for you guys. If you guys need help on this, as I mentioned to you guys, I don't expect you guys to be an expert in this stuff in 30 to 45 minutes. Okay. We're here to help you guys. We have a special package. You get access to all of our financial plan building technology. Okay. And I'll actually show you guys some of this stuff right now on your screen so that we can see it. So like here is our financial plan building technology. You can see this person is like on a payoff plan right here. We go in, we can add in all your short-term goals. We can do the day-to-day money for you, so it's all organized, money for future self. We can go into risk management, put all your information in, see exactly how much money you have left over, so you know how much should be going to that number one goal. And then we can go in and actually simulate the plans and say, hey, what's going to happen with this in your case? Is the score going to stay up? When are you hitting your goals? Like, what type of assets do you have in the long run? How fast will you pay off your student loan debt? And then, for example, this is a student loan payoff strategy. What happens if you want to compare this to a loan forgiveness strategy? we can go in and build a second plan for you within seconds. I already have one built here, and literally compare them side by side. So you can see like, hey, this one is going to give me more money in the long term. This one is going to give me more money in the short term. How does this complement my goals, and what am I trying to do? So our financial plan building technology does that for you. Not only that, but we have other technologies that you can use as well. So like on student loans, we can help you shop student loan refinance rates. We have technology that will help you go through and determine if it's worth it for you to refinance. If you want to see things like how much is your tax bomb going to be, we have that. If you want us to track, if you recall earlier, I told you guys that they made payments or they overcharge people on their student loan payments all the time. We track that with this tool here. Plus we track your IDR tax bomb. So as tax laws change over time, we can help you with that as well to track that. In terms of investments, we help you guys say, how should your money be allocated? So like this person has a Roth IRA, for example. You can see here, we're telling them that they're not taking enough risk, and this is where they should be based on their profile. So we can show you that. We can even go in here and show you like how to actually allocate the money, and how you should have your investments and like your 401k to actually match what we just told you, so we can match this for you. And if you don't even want to do this, you're on your own, you can open up investment accounts with us as well. So we can invest the money for you, and then it's all automated. We have home ownership stuff where it's like, how much home can I afford? Or should I rent versus buy? All that type of stuff. We can help you with all of it. So financial planning or individual topics like that, we can help you. Student loans, we can help you. And most importantly, we know that you guys don't want to do this on your own. Plus, we can do it very quickly for you. So if you sign up, what you do is you build your profile. We recommend coming up here, scheduling a call with one of our financial experts, and we will walk you through all this. The financial experts are no extra cost, and you can call them anytime you guys want to. And so that is the technology. Again, the technology for the financial planning, the individual tools, as well as the expert. Most of the time, financial planners on average cost about $3,000 per year. It's 120 grand over 40 years, which is stupid expensive. Your guys' special is that you get 25% off our regular pricing, which means you only have to pay $14.24 per month. And that is locked in forever. If you guys sign up, you'll never have to worry about it going up. All you have to do is scan this to sign up, put in the code box MPTEFF. You're going to see a screen like this. You just click add code. That's where you get in. That's where you put it in. And you should see the dollar amount drop on that, and then sign up. And so that is how you can get help. And I hope that you guys take advantage of it. It's extremely affordable. It's trustworthy. Like I said, we've helped over 20,000 individuals now, most of that PTs. So we're looking forward to helping you guys. You know, the number one question I get all the time is, if I'm married, do I need two accounts? No, it's one account. You pay one time, both people go on the same account. We can help you both at the same time. So I'm looking forward to it. And if you guys have any questions, definitely reach out to us as well. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you, and then go from there. So I don't know if we're going to have any questions on the live stuff, or in the chat box or whatnot. So I'll stay up for a few minutes, and then go from there.
Thank you so much, Joseph.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I always love doing this with you guys, and hope all the new grads are ready to go and hit the ground running. So
Absolutely.
see.